Hi, good morning. Yeah, it's actually, my mom is a workaholic. She's a professor of molecular biology. She found a mutant and she named it after me. She had to sit up all night because the mutants need like 3-letter acronyms. So the IDA is the inflorescence deficient inabscission. So there's an actual mutant named after me. That's pretty cool, I think so. My mom is actually on Twitter too. So you could follow her or you could follow me. My mom is actually cooler. If you take a picture of this slide, then you have a URL there for the slides and some resources. So just so you know, that's me. Okay, so I work at Confrere, which is a startup. For quite a long time, or like it felt like a long time, for a year, my company looked like this. Literally, this is the whole company. You could fit the company into a selfie. We were trying, and we still are trying, to make video calling tool. That's the idea of the company. And some of you might then think, it's like 2019, your startup's idea is video calls. I think we had that for a while, you know? Is that a very good idea, maybe? Don't you have like a bunch of competitors? Yeah. Video calling has been around for a while, but also video calling still, even in 2019, feels a lot like this.
Rico.
You stole the Medusa serum?
Well, stole the serum, saved the day, did your job for you. Call it what you will. Debbie.
Dave.
Dave.
He hacked into our system.
Where's the sound?
Dave,
I can't.
your microphone, it's not on.
Click on the button with the picture of the microphone.
Every time a villain calls in, this happens.
Hello? Hello?
Well, now we can hear you, but
we cannot see you.
Every time.
That's like talking to my parents.
Always
How about now?
Yes! Oh, yes, we've got
So,
you. That's fantastic.
now, where was I?
And you know, and you're all laughing. So, but you're tech-savvy people, and even you find this like a very familiar situation. And the feeling that video calls suck is such a mainstream feeling that you can make it a joke in a Pixar movie. So I don't know, 2019, I'm not sure video calling really is where it should be. You know, there's still room for improvement. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is that, so why do video calls suck? What's wrong with them? What just happened here, for instance? Was that really like a technical problem? Or was it like a design problem, a UX problem? And for so many of the things that are super annoying with video calls, it's about both design and development. You need to have some kind of collaboration between design and development. And I think in general, and this is not just for video calls, everything that we try to build online today is very hard to make really, really good stuff without having designers and developers work closely together. And in this little company, with these 4 little people, we felt that we were really doing it well. We were just like high-fiving, and everything's so great, and we're so amazing. We're doing such a good job. And I was wondering, why is it going good? What is it that we're doing right? Why is this working? Because if later on our company would grow, it would be really nice if it still felt like we had a very good way of collaborating across design and development, even as more people grew. But if it was just this feeling that, hey, we're awesome, high five, could we really take that with us as we grew? So I had to try to sit down and figure out what is it about the way that we're working that makes it so easy for us to collaborate and criticize each other, actually. And then my colleague Doug Inge said, well, I think it works because we're doing it as peers. You know, being berated and just like getting a list of faults things that need to fix. So when we were critiquing each other, it didn't feel like someone was picking at you. We were doing it together. And that was kind of the aha moment for me when they said this word, peer. Peer is also, as I mentioned, my mom is a researcher. Peer review is something that's very common in academic research, but I also have code review. It's not that easy to see, actually, because there's a light here. But if you consider yourself a developer, please raise your hand, and high up. I told my workshop on Wednesday that if you raise your hand like this and you can't do this, then you should talk to your physical therapist. Just a tip. It's nice to be able to move the whole shoulder. But yeah, let's see. So most of you designers then, the ones that consider yourselves designers, raise your hands. Yeah, okay. Well, then it's okay for me to what is actually code review? It's not like I'm telling you how to do your jobs then. That's nice. Okay, so I think that's that basically everyone does that now, code review. What is code review? So let's just ask Wikipedia because it's easier. Systematic examination of a computer source code. It's intended to find mistakes overlooked in software development, improving the overall quality of software, done in various forms such as pair programming, informal walkthroughs, and formal inspections. Just to break it down to you, so these are my colleagues, Dag Inge and Ingvild. If you have a Slack or something, and sometimes you look into the Slack channels of the developers, you just see something like this, and then this, and then you're like, okay, I don't know what you're up to, but probably important. But to make it a little bit more visual for you, what's actually going on here is that, so Ingvild, she's making a new feature. So she's the author, she's building it. And then Dag Inge has the role of a reviewer. And when she's built this new feature, she sends the code to him, asking for his review. He looks at it, makes comments, maybe this could be different, or maybe this could be changed. She then considers them, she could decide just well, I don't agree about this, or I decide to change this. But she will send the new version, he'll look at it, and say yeah, I think this looks good. And she's the author, decides if she wants to push this to the main repository to put it online. Make sense? So, why do people do code review? There's a bunch of blog posts and research about the reasons you would do it, but the most obvious thing is that it weeds out errors. You get better quality. It also ensures consistency, because if everyone is looking over each other's code, it becomes more consistent. But also a very nice way to learn is to look at how someone else solved the problem. Look at someone else's code. And the one thing that's really nice, and I think which is relevant to this talk, is that when we're all looking at it, it's not like my feature and your feature, because at some point someone critiqued it and gave feedback and you change it depending on something else said, and it becomes our code. And you can't really say that one thing is just one person's responsibility. We'll work it together. And I don't know, are reviews just for code? I don't know, sometimes I try to speak English with a British accent and sometimes American, and it's confusing me. Maybe I should do it in the Norwegian accent again, that's better maybe. So let's see, it's time to review ourselves. So what I want to tell you then is I think that not only developers should use review, we should also use it ourselves at design. Or maybe I should do the American instead, try it. It's easier to follow. I'm a little bit language confused this morning. There is a quote about code review. So code reviews set the tone for the entire company that everything we do should be open to scrutiny from others, and that such scrutiny should be a welcome part of your workflow rather than viewed as threatening. And I'm not sure if that should, look at this. Isn't this something that we would appreciate as designers too? So if you just take this quote and change it slightly, just strike code, and then it's my quote. Reviews set the tone for the entire company. And an important thing here is that, so I think that we can learn something from the way developers work when they create things. Asking for feedback systematically and asking for building it into the things that we're doing. And the reason it works is because the roles are so clear. Everybody here, of course, doesn't it kind of sound like we're designed by committee? Everyone getting to have an opinion on my work? I don't think I'm interested in that, but that's the whole thing. Review does not mean design by committee. And I think the key here, and this is how I figured out that the code reviews were an inspiration for why it actually worked as collaboration in the company, is that there's such clear roles. There's an author, there's always one author. One person is making it, and the other one are just reviewing it. They don't get to do the thing and change it and touch your stuff. They get to offer their feedback and their critique and their opinions, and then you get to decide whether you think it's relevant or not and keep moving. But at an early stage, people can give you feedback. I think for this to work, you need principles for it. There's like a bunch of good blog posts about this, but I'm going to try to summarize it in a way, the principle for how to even work these kind of review processes, so that it also works in design contests. So, obvious. So, like, why did you make the button like that? Or, you know, I think this button needs improvements. It's not you, it's the button. And of course, for it to even work, you have to be critical. The whole point of the review is to like find the mistakes, find the errors, find the things that could be better. But you can still be, you know, affable, be curious about it. You know, this button, it's not accessible. I was like, well, what can we do to make it accessible? Are there things that we could do? Can she like offering it up as questions instead? So also, again, the author can somehow find a way to solve it. It's more like how we could improve it. That's what we're chasing after. And then to kind of be clear in the way we communicate, is this like a suggestion? It's like, well, have you tried doing it like this? Or it's like, well, I think this actually needs to be changed. Or is this something like, I'm not sure I understood what you did here. Could you explain it to me? And for this to work, especially when so many of us, we're a completely remote-friendly company, discussions should not, about like when it becomes a little bit more complicated, you should move it to face-to-face. And since I'm in a video calling company, video counts as face-to-face. So I started saying like, oh, it's so nice to meet you face-to-face. I stopped saying that. I always say, oh, it's so nice to meet you in 3D. Because, you know, video is also face-to-face. It's just 2D face-to-face for now. And the fifth principle, of course, praise people. The things are really good that should be kept, that we like. We should praise those. So here's like a summary. And when I first started thinking about this and wrote it down, our company was still just 4 people and had some freelancers. But since then, we've grown. We're 10 people now. It seems like half of us are enjoying it and the other one are hating it. So, but some of us are having fun. I don't know what the other one's problem is. And it still works. It still works really well. There was something about the way this thinking that really worked. But also then I have to underscore, and like it's kind of on the side segue here over to another topic. I would recommend reading this article. What Google learned when they tried to build a perfect team. So this is just something as a prerequisite that you need to do reviews. And so what they try to do is like they do have all this data. They have some teams. They had some teams that were super high performing and other teams that were not performing as well. And they try to figure out, how do we build the perfect team? And they had all kind of theories of how they would build a perfect team, you know. But it couldn't find any patterns. It was like, is it like, oh, a mix of introverts and extrovert? Is it like having this educational background? Is this, is that? It was like, there's no patterns in the data at all. And, you know, Google are good at crunching data. So it's like, what's going on here? And what they figured out later on, it hadn't really much to do with the characteristics of the individuals, and not even a combination of the characteristics of the individuals, but it's something that happened with group norms. So teams that worked well, members spoke roughly the same proportions, not always in the same way. Like, so as they say here, sometimes there was like a leaders that like, yeah, you talk now, and you talk now, and you talk now. Otherwise, more organically, but like the total time that each team member spoke was roughly equal. And also, they were good at kind of like sensing how the other people in the team felt. So this is often summarized as this phrase called psychological safety. So the reason that I'm mentioning this is that for like these kind of reviews and critique and feedback and close collaboration to work, it's not really about my list of how to do a review. Like the foundation there is still to make people feel like they're safe and they're in a safe space. Like as I said, confidence that the team will not embarrass, reject, or punish someone for speaking up. You trust each other and you have mutual respect for each other. So that's a prerequisite to do this kind of work as close as we do. So what does it mean in practice? warning, you're gonna get like a bunch of Slack screenshots now. I wish it looked like more exciting how we work, but if you're a very remote-friendly team, basically your life is in Slack. So I'm sorry about that. So just to say, so what I'm gonna just try to demonstrate is that what we wanna avoid is these like waterfall processes and keep including other people early on, also from other disciplines, and show how that doesn't have to be dangerous or feel threatening as long as the roles are clear. Yeah, so for instance, now we're gonna try to make it easier. I'm ready when you are, if you don't mind me eating in the video call. I don't know, I put that on a big slide, I'm sorry. So we're gonna try to make these modules to make people upgrade their plan. So the first thing then is like we have to decide what are the criteria here. So in this part, I would say that I, as a product officer, I'm the author here, and I'm asking the other ones for feedback. And this is the brief I gave them. This is summarized in a freehand. Next step then is that after we then have, I'm handing the task over then to someone else. I'm handing it over to the designer, which is Julia. So that, like I wrote this plugin in Anya to review what I came up with as like the criteria. So I'm the author here. They don't get to decide anything. I'm deciding, but they can give their feedback. And now when we decide on something, I'm giving it over to Julia. So now she's the author, but she's also making sure that she's asking people for feedback at this point. So very early on. Again, and then there's like a bunch of comments here. And then, again, here are the final the sketches from Julia. She's handing it over to Paul. And then this is a very nice test. So here we have a developer, and we're gonna have a discussion about 2 pixels. How does this feel? How does this feel when someone asks you about the mistake you made about 2 pixels or like some inconsistency? To me, this is a very good example of psychological safety. Let's see how this goes. These 2 elements are very similar, only the blue one is font size 16 and the other one is 14. Is that intentional? So he's the author, but he needs some feedback here. Nominating his reviewer. Yes, but it would be better if they were the same. I'll check and get back to you. I changed these to 16. Do you think it works well? Yeah, I think that works well. Okay, let's change to 16. Maybe we should change this while we're at it. Also 16 pixels. Yes, rounded corners and 28 pixels height. And everyone is in love with each other still. But I think, so what's the point? Like, how big a deal was the 2 pixels? But I think that when you come to a point where everybody feels that if I ask you about 2 pixels, if you don't have the psychological safety, that would be like the most annoying day at work. Someone coming over is like, you know, there's like a 2 pixel difference in your sketches here. Like, was that intentional? Or like, what were you thinking? Or like, you're being sloppy? Or like, what's your problem? And it's just like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I guess they should be the same. Maybe we should change this too. Yeah, high five. And instead it's just like a 3-minute discussion and it became better. But the thing is that if you're not even afraid to ask about 2 pixels, you're gonna catch so many other problems. And also, again, about especially when you work remotely, if you have time for a quick video call, I have a question that's better explainable over video. This call lasted 2 minutes and 17 seconds. So it was a quick video call, you know, not hesitating to ask other people for feedback early on because it's just going to be better instead of you're going to do guessworks. So I don't know if this is the best example, but the thing is that having one person responsible at the different stages of building something, to me, what I'm trying to illustrate with this example is that doesn't mean it's like a waterfall process. Because you can ask people for feedback throughout the whole process and make them included and let them know what's going on. And also, I think what I'm trying to underscore is that involving everyone does not mean design by committee. You can have all of these people, like with tons of different roles, the front-end developer, back-end developer, the designer, the UX person, the marketing person, because it's very clear at each stage that I'm doing this task now, and you get to give me feedback. And I will consider that feedback. And at some point, I'll hand it over to the next person. So it kind of looks like, you know, you had, say, there's one person at each step that was responsible, that was the author, but I also have like, had a different example before, the sign-up flow. So there you go, you won't see those screenshots. The main point then was being that There's also another very important thing here, and that's I also consider user testing a form of review. Some of you attended my workshop on Wednesday. You're wonderful. I still think that you're wonderful people. I had so much fun. And sometimes, because we're all like high-fiving each other, giving each other feedback, it feels great, and you build this thing, and you take it out, and you show it to your customers, and it feels like this. So this is what it feels like. This is a GIF, how do you say? I never say GIF out loud in English. This is an accurate description of my feelings. But this is not an accurate description of what's actually going on. If this is what it feels like when someone tries to use your product, maybe you didn't design a glass. Maybe the explanation is not that your users are stupid. Maybe it's just that the thing that you designed is not really that self-explanatory. Here's the thing that I designed. So this is when you go into the video call. There are like several drop-downs here. Lots of people got confused here. But let's imagine that they understood this too, and they clicked the I'm ready button. So, and then we sat here, and we waited, and it started ringing, and the users just sat there. Okay, I'm gonna click it so that you don't have to be exhausted here. That's my CTO. Hi. It's not live video, sorry. Who would have thunk? But what happened here is that that I never would have figured out if we didn't do user testing. Like, why didn't they click the green button? It's a green blinking accept call button and it's ringing. What's wrong with my users? But when we sat there and they talked out loud, they're like, why isn't he picking up? It takes forever to pick up. So when they saw the video of themselves and they heard the sound, because they had entered the website, they were so convinced that they were calling the other party, they went looking for an accept call button. You know, I never would have figured that out if I didn't do user testing. So in the new version, it actually ended up being lots more steps. I guess I have to click again. Yeah. And so now it's like 4 steps instead of 1, and now I have to make a very embarrassing sound. I'm sorry. I don't know why I don't. Because it's like it doesn't. I get so embarrassed every time I see that. And then change it to this actually made us get. Oh yes, the sound is very. It's very important to check your hair before you go into a video call. That's why there's a self view. Yeah. Yeah. So why is this important? The user testing to do it as a review. Oh, look, numbers to prove everything. Okay, I'm going to break it down. So what you're seeing here is like 5 different studies where first they did like an expert review of an interface, and then they did user testing. 1 out of 3 problems found in the expert reviews were a false alarm. So your smart-ass colleague that came over and said, oh, this is never going to work, in 1 out of 3 cases, they might be wrong. It's not actually a problem. They're just experts. We're all just experts. We don't know. Because even more scary is the fact that when they did the user testing of the same interfaces, 1 out of 2 problems found in the user testing were overlooked by the experts. So just getting feedback from your colleagues is not enough. I mean, can you imagine, like, and I don't know why we accept this. Can you imagine, like, if the developers in your company, they stopped doing code review because someone's like, well, it's only half of the bugs that we aren't catching. You know, it's not such a big deal. Half of the bugs, are you crazy? We're going to ship it with half of the bugs and we think that's okay. We would never accept that. But with usability issues, it's like, well, you know, it's like we don't really have the time. We don't really have the resources. To me, it's insane that we keep taking this risk and not doing user testing. Luckily, though, you only need to test with 5. There's math behind it. You can get the math behind it if you click the link. It's basically probability. So like if you throw a dice. So if you, I'm not going to force you into this, but the short version is that if like 30% of you are the people that would not click the green call button, already if I test with 5 of you, if 30% of you were the not green clicking, I would have like an 80% chance of having at least 1 person that had that problem. If I test with even more people, 8, okay, it's moving up slightly, my chance of observing it, but I spent a lot more time on it. Already testing with just 3 people, I would have like a 70% chance of having at least one person that had that error. And also, you know, if you test with 0 people, I don't know if you know what your chances would be of observing it. They say that designers are not that good at math, but I think you know the answer to this one. It is 0. So, you know, you should do the user testing. It's not really that expensive. I know you like biking in Amsterdam. I just get on my bike around, go to people places with my laptop, and that's how I cut the cost of doing the user testing, because it's a very important part of user testing. So, review. This is like a 4. This is death to creativity. This is just gonna break us down. I think, you know, if it's a good idea, I think it's gonna survive review. If it is a really good idea, you'll be able to explain it and defend it, and you can still use it. And I think especially, of course, if you're working with art, this is different, but most of us, we're not artists. You know, at best, we're artisans. We're doing work, doing a craft. We're not creating art. And let's try to create something together instead of being afraid that someone is gonna pick on our 2-pixel mistakes instead. Thank you.